Welcome to the Faye Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast about everything from Jesus to joinery, and we enjoy talking about it all. So, Tom, it's been a beautiful weekend here. We've had some weird storms. So, northwestern Pennsylvania, we don't get the storms that like the South gets or other parts of the country. You know, it'll rain here, but it doesn't get too crazy. We get the snow, right? And we've had some crazy storms, but in between there, we got to spend some time outside. And today is Memorial Day as we're recording this. I spent the several hours on the tractor. When I bought the house, we started walking the property, and I found on the back of the field, there's a shooting backstop. And so I was like, oh man. And so I was told some guys at work, and they're like, dude, you've got to get that going, and we'll come out and we'll bring the whole armory out and we'll have some fun shooting. And so I spent the day on the tractor with the brush hog, clearing a path, and then making a plan to build up that backstop. And then I marked out 100 yards. And so you can, sight in your scopes for hunting and all that kind of stuff. And So, and then I also figured I have enough for 100, 150, and 200 yard range on my property. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's the benefits of having 25 acres. Now, most of my land is in the woods. 20 acres of it is in the woods, and then 5 acres where the house sits, open and stuff. And so you're shooting into 20 acres of woods, and our property is 500 feet wide by 3,000 feet deep. And so it's super safe there's nothing back there either. I mean, there's probably 2 miles of woods before you get to a road. So I live in the sticks. So yeah, spent some time out there, and I'll tell you what, it is exhausting being on a tractor. You think like, you're not doing much physical labor. You're just, moving the bucket and all the stuff. And, but yeah, out in the sun and you're just roasting out there. I've got a big straw hat that I wear. My wife calls me a farmer because I got the beard, and, we live in Amish country. She says I look like I'm Amish when I'm out there. So, but man, how have you been? How's your past week been?
Bus wrap after bus wrap after bus wrap. It's just been busy, but praise God that able to put food on the family's table,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's work has been just really busy. So I'm very thankful for it, because my business is slow during the winter times, and it typically picks up in the spring. And but with the farm and with work, it's just been crazy, man. Everybody else had today off. Today's Memorial Day when we're recording this, and I'm up at 4 a.m. Got my reading in at 6:30. I was at the bus station working on a bus while they're, So, but I got finished and got home about 2. So not too bad. I was hoping to be home by noon, but I had a removal to do on it, and the removals are what takes so long. But came home, ate some lunch, took a nap, and then put the smoker outside. Got some ribs going on the smoker, and then it took me a little nap, and then went outside, did some work on the farm. But yeah, so
holding them ribs, I'm gonna get a red eye and come out there and.
I love ribs. I like pork ribs and beef ribs. It doesn't matter. And I'm gonna tell you, I've had my smoker now for about 2 years, but the first year I had it, I used it some, but not a lot. But the more I use it, the more I love using it, man. It's the nice thing about it is, like you talk about the tractor, like I could put something on the smoker and walk away. And I don't have the wood burning smoker. I've got the electric pellet. And I tell you what, it's Pit Boss, and I love that thing because I can walk away from it and just come back and check every hour or so. And man, it's fantastic. So
that's nice.
And them ribs will just melt in your mouth.
We were actually just talking about that today. When we moved from Tennessee, I sold my grill. I had a nice, big stainless steel grill. I didn't want to move it. And so I sold it on Facebook, and now we don't have a grill. We don't have a really good place to put one yet. We're going to build a deck off the back at some point, but my wife and I were talking about it. I says, well, the next grill I buy, it's going to be a nice one that I'm going to have forever. Right. It's like kind of the last grill. Now, I don't like the smoke flavor of stuff unless it's done right. unless it's like, where if it tastes like a campfire, I can't do it. Right. But if it's got that good,
Yep.
Like hickory or something, that good flavor, then I definitely like it. But I want, and they sell them and they're expensive. I want a dual grill, one that's a grill and then one that's a griddle. And I don't want the full griddle. I want the full grill. I want one of each so that I can, cook my peppers, onions over here while I'm frying up the sausage over here. And then, you know what I mean? Like do the double thing and do breakfast on the griddle and that kind of stuff. And so, but they're like $1,000 for a normal priced one. So that's not in the budget right now.
I save up and get, I did the same thing. I waited until I got what I wanted. And, we just love cooking outside. And the one beautiful thing about here in Colorado versus back in the Carolinas where I'm from is we can actually enjoy the outside. As the sun starts to go down, we don't have mosquitoes. Our mosquitoes are not bad like they were in the Carolinas. We really didn't enjoy the outdoors as much in the summer because it was humid. And then the mosquitoes were like helicopters, man. They'd pick you up and carry you away.
I was about to say, in Tennessee, man, we live there. And the mosquitoes will pick you up and take you out there. I was like, "Ooh, didn't like that." But yeah, I worked at this place years ago, and the boss, the owner, every Friday he had one of those green egg grills. You ever seen them?
Oh yeah, they're nice.
And he would do burgers on them, and to this day, they're the best burgers I've ever had. And he'd go out there by 11 o'clock and start getting it going and warmed up and do burgers out there. But yeah, good stuff. Making me hungry, even though I already ate. So usually Sundays, but today's kind of the Sunday because I go back to work tomorrow. We do homemade pizza, and so made homemade pizza tonight. But man, before we jump into our special guest on the podcast, I just want to say thank you to all of the people who support us on Patreon and just by listening to the podcast. We appreciate everybody. And if you want to support the podcast, you could do so on patreon.com/Faith Talked Wood. You can also support us by giving us a 5-star on Apple. That goes a long way. It helps the podcast be found. And then just pray for the podcast. We believe this is a God-ordained podcast, and we want to continue to do his will as we host the podcast. And without further ado, Tom, who is our guest on the podcast today? Although, as I say that, people will read the title and know who it is.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. So, the one thing that I enjoyed about Workbench Con, the only thing I enjoyed about Workbench Con was the cool people I met, And when we were there, we were talking to Chris Duncan, our buddy over at Dunk Woods, and he was like, "Tom, I got to introduce you to this girl. You got to get her on the podcast. You're going to love her." And before she could even say her name, I was like, "I love this girl. I love her. I could see the light shining." If my grandmother would have met her, she would have said, "That's a little ball of sunshine." And, there's a verse of Matthew that says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good work." And
Matthew 5.
Oh yeah. 5:14. And as soon as you meet Deandra, that's what you're going to see. You see the light shining. And so I am so excited to have you on today, Deandra. So without further ado, Deandra Howard, better known as Work Boots and Glasses.
Hello. How are y'all doing?
We are fantastic, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Ooh, okay. It's like, where do we start?
So
my name is
start from where you live at and
Okay.
kind of what you do and family or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. So of course my name is Deandra. I married my high school sweetheart and we have 3, I know, crazy, right? We have 3 daughters. My
he's
middle
busy.
I know. They drive me bonkers, but I love them. My oldest is in college and she's trying to graduate pretty soon. Yeah.
You got a college kid?
I know. Yes.
Would have fooled me.
Exactly, right? My middle just graduated high school. And my youngest is getting ready to be a sophomore. And they are little spitballs, the two balls of fire. They're active. They grew up playing sports, track, soccer, and basketball. And we've just kind of like been on the go. I wanted to make sure they had, something to not necessarily distract them from things that they shouldn't be getting into. So sports was a thing that they were naturally good at, and you could see them like work towards a goal and just like exceed it. So I was super proud of all of them for just being, involved in sports and competing and all that good stuff. My youngest daughter who went to the Junior Olympics twice. So yeah, for track. Yeah, she's done that. My daughter played, soccer in college until she was like, I'm over it. And then she kind of stopped and is now working towards another goal that she has that I think she's still trying to figure out what she wants to do and be. And my middle is still trying to figure things out. So as of right now, I started woodworking 2021. I just kind of wanted to replace IKEA pieces in my home and was afraid of the power tools. So I kind of like just put it on the back burner. The crazy thing is like me and my husband used to go tour model homes, and I would look how they would furnish their house, and I would go to each piece of furniture that I like and shake it and make it wobble or try to pick it up. And I would tell myself, I bet I could make this, like not really recognizing that I was actually telling myself something that I was going to do in the future. But I would say that, and it would make me not want to spend the money on pieces, but to actually learn how to make it. So when IKEA came around, I was like, ooh, let me see, about putting pieces together. That kind of became like I was the go-to girl for anybody who wanted to put IKEA pieces together. And then one day, like after like COVID hit, and then like a year later, like when we're trying to figure out like what's going on and what should we do because we're stuck at home, I was on Instagram and I was watching a girl share that she was dealing with the grief of her sister and how DIYing helped with that for her. And I went through all her highlighted videos of her just learning how to use tools and her sharing that she was self-taught. And that was kind of like, wait a minute, you taught yourself? Hold on. So I just kept watching all her highlighted videos of her making this arched cabinet. And I was so inspired that I was like, and I watched until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, okay, I have to try this. So the next morning I woke up, I went to Home Depot, I bought a miter saw and some wood and followed a plan to make a sofa table. And the sofa, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't pick out straight boards. I didn't sand anything. I cut everything the way it was supposed to be. And it came out so bad, but I had so much fun making it that I just kept going. So after that, I was like, ooh, I want to make something else. And then I made a workbench. I was like, ooh, I want to make something else. But I make a console table, then a cabinet, and then a round table. And I just kept going. And as I was sharing all of these things that I was making on social media, I got asked what I would sell the piece for, or if I could make something that I made in a different size. And I was, to me, that was shocking because I was like, y'all know, I'm just learning how to do this, right? Why are you going to pay me to do this? So I was shocked when people started asking me what I would charge or how much this cost, because I was like, I don't know, like, this is not something that I sought out to do and to make money on. I just wanted to learn to replace the IKEA pieces in my home. And because of me having so much fun just learning and selling the pieces that I made that I wanted to learn, I still have not replaced the IKEA pieces in my home. I still have that sofa table and that calyx square box that everybody seems to have in their home. But I did make some chairs for my porch that I have. But again, what I wanted to do was make some stuff for my house that I have not done, because it turned into a business for me. And that's kind of like how it all started. I made a round table, and I wanted to make a base for it that was different than just your regular straight legs. And I saw somebody use these fluted rounds, but I couldn't find the half rounds. I found like the actual full circles. And I just put that around a table, for the base and on a round table. And I because I didn't have room for it. I just wanted to make it, and I showed that I made it. And because I didn't have room to keep it, I put it on Marketplace to sell. And the amount of people that reached out to me to buy that table, I was like, what did I just do? Yeah. So that table has been like a staple that I've made for multiple people, because when I sold it, I didn't think anything, about making more, but because I was still getting requests from people wanting to know about the table, I actually put it up as a custom made table. So people who wanted to purchase it could could get one in whatever size that they wanted. And that table has been a table that I've made multiple times for a lot of people who find it on Facebook Marketplace. And that's kind of where, I don't want to say it took off, because I haven't only been asked to make that. People will find me and ask me to make other things also, because they see that I can actually build furniture. So I've had people reach out to ask me to make other things based off of me showing that I made the table. So it really just, God was like, this is your business. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to sell. And we're going to go with it, because I had no idea what I was doing when I first started this. Like, I was selling stuff for double the supplies. And that was kind of like, okay, here you go.
Yeah. Do you have like a career outside of this, or did you have one before?
So I used to teach ESL online to kids in China. And I would
you do sign language?
Yeah, no, not sign language. ESL. English as a second language.
ESL is also English Sign Language. So that's why.
Okay. Okay. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, awesome.
And that schedule was like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I was like, what I would do is like teach in the morning, take my kids to school, come home, go to sleep, wake up, pick them up from school, and then teach. Again. So that kind of like went on before I actually started like building furniture. So that's what I was doing during COVID. And then when I started wanting to do something different, the kids went on their holiday for like their Chinese New Year. And because I was having so much fun building, I didn't open my schedule back up and just continued to build. So that's kind of how I stopped doing that, because I enjoyed building more so than I did teaching. And, that schedule was kind of like, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, obviously name of the podcast is Faith Talks Wood. And so the big reason we wanted on here is obviously your woodworking story, but I want to hear your story of faith, how you came to know Jesus, how you grew up. Because girl, I'm going to tell you, when I met you at Workbench Con, I instantly knew. I was like, man, this girl has got the love of Jesus in her, and it shines. So,
amen. I appreciate that.
Tell us about your journey of faith.
So I grew up going to church with my grandmother, and we went to church like faithfully Sunday. And then on Tuesdays, we had purity class, and then she put us in choir. So I had choir rehearsal during the weeks and stuff like that. So I grew up going to church with my grandmother. As my mom had me young. So a lot of the stuff I did with my grandmother because my mom was still trying to figure her life out also. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. Me and my sisters did. There's 4 of us. So when we grew up going to church, that was kind of already instilled in us. But my relationship with the Lord didn't come until later, because of course, when you're young and you're being forced to go to church, you're like, this isn't fun. I don't want to be here all the time. Like, why are we always at church? But as I got older, and then you recognize certain things in your life and you're like, why does this keep happening? Or how come I don't feel fulfilled? Or, why do I feel like this is so hard, struggling so hard for stuff that seems to come easy to other people. And I remember my husband joining the military, like fast forward a few years, but my husband joined the military in 2012. And when he joined the military, of course, he had to leave. So not to say that I did kind of became a single parent raising 3 daughters, while he was gone to boot camp and all that stuff. And not recognizing that him being gone messed with me in a way that I didn't understand was kind of like, I was a stay-at-home mom. My youngest daughter was 3 before my husband left. And I was trying to make sure that she was taken care of, doing all the things that, for the for my youngest daughter to make sure she wasn't just bored out of her mind, but also doing things that, as a parent to make sure their kids, are doing what they're supposed to do. And I remember like doing that for a while and it was fun. And then I was kind of like tired of just being at home with my 3-year-old. And I was like, there has to be more to me just being a parent. And I remember having that moment where I was just like, I need to do something else. And I didn't know what I needed to do. And I remember my uncle is very into, I don't want to say into the Lord, but my uncle is very faith-based. I don't even know how to put him he is my spiritual father. Let's put it that way. And my grandmother called me one day. I was like, you want to go out to breakfast with me? And I was like, sure. And my uncle said he knew he needed to be there. And I had no idea that he was coming with my grandmother because she invited me. And when all this was happening and my husband was gone, I was on like cash aid and food stamps trying to make ends meet. And I remember feeling like the Lord was telling me to get off of cash aid and food stamps. But I was hesitant because I was like, how are we going to eat? How are we going to have food? You know what I mean? Like, we don't have 2 incomes anymore. I'm not working. I'm with my daughter. And I shared that with my uncle at breakfast. And he was like, oh, the Lord's trying to bless you. He's like, he's telling you to let go of I can't even put it into words, like the lack, so he can provide for what you really need. And I was just like, okay, right? Like, me in my mind, I'm still like, if I'm getting something, why would I let go of that, not knowing where the other something is coming from? So I pondered on doing that for, I think, like a couple weeks before I actually was like, okay, because I kept feeling it. It was like, get off, like hardcore, you know what I mean? Like ingrained in me. And I remember getting the packet to say for the next month, if I wanted to continue, I had to submit all that stuff. And when I got that piece of paper that was like, do you want to continue or do you want to, stop? I clicked the stop and sent it off and was like, okay, okay, God, I trust you. I hope what you're saying is what you're saying. And my husband had gone to, like I said, he was, already gone for like boot camp and stuff like that. But where he was working, they did supplemental pay. But because the supplemental pay hadn't kicked in, because I guess he needed to submit whatever he needed to submit to say he was gone and for how long he was, they ended up back paying him for the months that he was gone prior to when he first joined to the time that he had been gone for that whole time. So he was able to receive money from the time from when he first joined the military till I think it was like maybe 6 to 8 months later. So it was like, I remember my husband woke me up. He was like, I just got the back payment. And I was just like, dude, are you kidding me? So he was able to get some, right? So I had no idea, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know how the Lord's going to make anything happen, but him pressing that upon me and me trusting him to get off of the cash aid and stuff was that first step. And I was just like, wow, you really do come through, right? So that was like my first, like, for real taste of the Lord, like seeing him do something. Later on, I was still feeling like, what do I bring to the table with my husband, as I was still trying to figure out who I was as a woman of God. And I remember I started to write blogs about how I was feeling or what I was going through during the time that my husband was gone. And the Lord would share with me like words of encouragement and just his truth to remind me who I am in him. And I started sharing that in my blogs, and I started posting them on WordPress and then sharing them on Facebook for people to read. And I had no idea what I was doing for other people. I was just trying to make sure that I was doing what the Lord told me to do when I started writing these blogs, because I was just like, I'm feeling like I don't offer my husband anything anymore. Like, right, I'm just here with my daughter, not bringing any income to the table, and I'm feeling just like down on myself. And I remember thinking that he would be unhappy with me having that be, who I was, if you will. And I remember asking him that question about, like, are you upset that I'm not working anymore? And he was like, no, I'd rather have you home with the kids so that you can be with our daughters. You can take them to school. You can pick them up. You can go to their soccer games and you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, so that was really like a load off my shoulders also. But sharing those moments where I was feeling that way, writing it out and sharing what the Lord shared with me in blogs was something that also was a way for me to let go of the negative that I was feeling about myself. And then to let the Lord take what I was feeling and tell me to share it with others. You know what I mean? Like being vulnerable in that sense where I'm just sharing with people like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. And God told me this. And I got to tell other people that, you know what I mean? And then he's like, do it. And I was like, this is like, you know what I mean? Like these are our innermost stuff you don't want to share with people. And he's like, share it. And I was like, okay, fine. So he has made me become like transparent in a lot of stuff that I do where I would want to hide and not share. And he's like, why would you hide what I've done for you? And I was like, I never look right. I was like, I've never looked at it that way because I'm thinking that people are going to see all the bad that was inside of me. And he's like, no, that's not what you're doing. You're sharing how good I've been to you. And I was like, okay, well, you know what I mean? It kind of made me stop looking at myself, of course, and to look towards what God has done in my life and share it with other people so that whoever else would be going through something tough, even if it's not the exact same thing, something similar, that God can use whatever you're going through to make you stronger, to build you up, and to share with you why you're going through certain things. You know, like a lot of the times we go through stuff, we have no idea why we're going through it until he's like, this is why. And you're like, oh, okay. But of course, while we're going through, it always seems like it's like, this is so hard. My life is going to end. You know what I mean? And God's like, nah, it's not. Just hold on a little longer and you're going to be all right. So I've learned to share the hard early on because my hard is not God's hard, right? So what I'm thinking, like what I'm thinking I'm going through that is hard. He's like, I got this. You're fine. Keep pushing through and you're going to come out better. So that has been an eye-opening thing for me to even witness, but also recognize that God is telling me to share what I think would be something negative, but be turned around in a positive light because he's the one that is allowing me to go through this thing to be able to say, this is how I got through, you know? So God is good.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Amen.
Everything that he's had me go through has been for a purpose. And like I said, I didn't recognize it then, but even as I go through something else after that, it's like I start to see him take that and use it for something else in my life, you know?
Absolutely.
Like he has definitely showed me through my kids too. So it's like, ooh.
Yeah, it's scary when you see yourself in your kids. You're like,
oh man, yeah,
that's awesome. You know,
he's done that to me a few times too. So
one of the things I always tell people, I think I heard this from a sermon like 12, 15 years ago, is that you're not defined by what you do, but you are defined by what God has done for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like the idea that, you know, all the stuff that we've been through doesn't amount to just how good God is that you're here today. Right.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And so are you still writing blogs? Is something you still do?
I do every so often. Like a lot of the times that I'm sharing now, it'll either be in like our Bible studies, so that we do like a family devotion on Sundays and then like a friend one on Thursdays. And every time I'll before those Bible studies, the Lord will give me a word and I'll share it there. But I am leaning towards more writing a book now because everything that he shared with me he's like, this needs to get out and not just a blog form. This needs to be out in a way for other people to see it who don't know who you are, to get a chance to recognize who I am through what you've gone through. So I'm getting that all together to put together how the Lord has given me just words that even sometimes like it'll just come like before I leave to go to the Bible study, I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to share? And he'll just be like this. And I'll be like, oh, okay. Sometimes it'll pertain to what I'm going through, or sometimes it'll pertain to what the word would be in the Bible study. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, the Lord just told me that. So it's so cool how he works. And, it blows my mind every single time.
Absolutely. And, we all have different gifts, right?
Mhm.
And we all, God uses us all in different ways. And that's just showing that you're obedient to the Spirit when he's like, hey, I want you to think about this or say this. And some people, it's different for everybody, everybody has a different way in which that God may use them. It may not be through words, maybe through actions, it may be through, but it's awesome to hear that you're being obedient, because that's hard. That's super hard, right?
Especially when you don't want to share something, you know what I mean? Like when you want to hide and God's like, share. And I'm like,
Yep.
The thing is God always uses the struggles we go through to help people.
Definitely.
If you only share when you're on the mountaintop, and
so
you don't
true.
share the struggles of how you got through the valleys to get to the mountaintop, it doesn't help anybody. It's
so true.
And I'm telling you, like, and all of us struggle with different things. I have a good friend of mine back in North Carolina who literally used to be a homeless cocaine addict.
Wow.
And now he has a 3-wheel motorcycle that he travels around the country on this trailer. I did all the graphics on it. Hope dealer rather than dope, because he used to be
There you go.
he was literally he sold cocaine for a living. He was a dope dealer, and then hit rock bottom. Lived under a bridge in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
And then dude, and he travels all over the country. So, speaking for Celebrate Recovery, and
we have CR in our church. I love CR.
Oh
it's
man,
so
so
good
powerful.
ministry.
But
Yeah.
and where I've never used cocaine, I can't relate to that,
Right,
and I
right.
can't help anybody that's going through that. But I've had some major financial struggles where I almost lost everything, and God brought me through it. And so I'm able to share those stories, or, physical. I used to be really overweight. And so, I love, you need to write the book, and I want a signed copy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'll proofread that thing for you.
Okay.
That's awesome. The funny thing is, we talked about this on the podcast, I don't know how many episodes ago, that the reality is that God doesn't stop you from going through things, but he brings you out of them, right?
Definitely.
So he didn't stop Daniel from going to the lion's den.
Right.
He brought Daniel through the lion's den. He didn't stop Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fire.
Right.
He brought them out of the fire, right? And so it's just when you get in the mindset that you realize that, God, what is it that you're trying to work through my life right now? Not woe is me. Because when we get in that woe is me state, and all of us have those friends, you read the book of Job and you see like his friends are like, yeah, forget God.
Exactly.
And you can't get in that state. You have to always be in scripture, be in prayer, and be open to God in those moments. And that's the hardest time to be in it. But as I say all the time, and Tom knows where I'm going, is that sometimes you have to go through tragedy to see God's majesty.
That's
right.
That is
because you have to empty everything out of yourself in order for him to fill you up.
That's right.
And sometimes all that crap is you got to go through it.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. There's no getting around that, right? Like you just got to go through.
So,
Wow.
I know you told us kind of how you got into woodworking, but what I want to know, that shop of yours, it looks like it's the size of Texas, and you have got every tool. It's immaculate. So I want to hear the story now, how you went. We know how you got started. How did you go to having a shop like that in my dream van? And
okay, God did that again. That was one thing so I had somebody who, and I know it had to be a setup because I had somebody complain that couldn't really complain without lying. So they said that I had a smell coming from my house because I had a woodworking shop, in my garage. And the city of Sacramento called me and told me they got a complaint. And I was like, and they said it was the smell. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no smell coming from my house. But because they had my address on file, that freaked me out. And I was like, anybody can come to my home address and try to do whatever they were going to do. And I was like, and I don't want strangers just coming to my house because the person who called the city of Sacramento said it was my home. And I was like, that's not cool. So that orchestrated me to look for a space. And that put me out of my comfort zone, that I was like, I don't know if this is even going to be possible for me to be able to find a space. But I know I'm outgrowing my garage. So the thing is, I would have stayed in my garage had I not been pushed to look for a space. So I started looking for a space, and I'm looking for, small, something that I can afford, something that seems like it'll be within the budget. And I am like not finding, a lot of the places that I were finding wanted me to put a huge amount of money down, or they wanted to see a ton of money in the bank, or I needed to be in business longer. And I'm just like, this is all new for me. So you're going to get what you get from me, because I don't have anything else to show that I've been in this business for as long as I am, because I've only been in it for a year, right? So I'm looking because I felt led to look, and this is what I'm doing. So what you're wanting from me, you're not going to get. And Lord, if this is what you want me to do, you're going to have to figure this out, because everybody that I've looked with, like realtors and stuff, sorry, they said no, not this time, or they went with somebody else. And I found another spot, went in, it was vacant. And the guy was like, this one is available and another one is available. And the one that was available right away was more money that I wanted to spend. And the one that was supposed to be coming available was less. So I told him, I was like, well, he's like, well, why don't we just ask, like, just see what happens. It was like, the worst thing they could do is just say no. And if they want you to do the smaller one, at least they would do that. He's like, but I'm thinking, because this one is vacant now and they'd rather have this be paid instead of still sitting vacant and not take the lesser amount of rent, they may just work with you for the price. So I said, if they will take this amount for it, okay, let's see what happens. And I'm just thinking, they're not going to say yes to that, right? I'm like, okay, let's try it, see what happens. And I think a couple of days later, he was like, okay, they said yes. And I was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And because it was vacant, it was like, you would even move in like 2 weeks before you need to move in, because, all you got to do is pay the deposit and they just want somebody in there. And I was just like, so that's just kind of what happened. That's, I was like, I was not even expecting them to say yes at all. Like, I went in just like, whatever. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you know what I mean?
How big
like
is that shop?
It's 3,600 square feet, right? And mind you, in the yeah. When I was looking for something, I was looking like 1,000, maybe 1,500, maybe 12, right? I just wanted something bigger than my garage. I was not expecting that at all. So when I got that and started putting everything that I had in my garage in there, I was like, yeah, I really did outgrow my garage. And then as I was building stuff, brands reached out to me and started supplying stuff for me to be able to make stuff. So I got some sponsored what is it called? Plywood to build the cabinets. I got some sponsored tools. I got some people was just reaching out to like do stuff. Some I reached out to just to kind of see what happened. Some reached out to me, and I was just like, wow. So the Lord totally blessed this. And like I said, I was not expecting this to happen at all. And that's the other thing too. Like, the Lord is also showing me within myself that if I want something, I need to ask for it. And I need to acknowledge him by asking for it, because hoping and wishing and praying, yes, praying is good, but like expecting stuff to just come out of the air, you know what I mean? Without having the ask behind it. And also expecting the Lord to move on my behalf. Like, I reached out to SoftStop, and like I said, for me, that was like dream come true, right? I had no idea that they would even respond. Like SoftStop to me was like, they're not going to say anything to me. I'm going to just reach out and hope they say something. And I reached out and in a DM, and they sent me an email address, and I was like, ooh, they responded. So I emailed them back and was telling them what I wanted to do, hoping to do like a collaboration with them. And they said yes. And I was like, you know what I mean? I was like, yes, that was my face too. That's what I said. I was just like, okay, God, like, I for real see you. Like, this is not by anything that I've done. I know it's not, because I also feel undeserving with a lot of the stuff I get. And I think that is also one of my downfalls, because I'm thinking God's not going to bless that because I'm not this big, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not acting a certain way or being a certain thing. And I'm forgetting that God does not operate the way we operate, right? We look at certain people and like, oh no, we can't work with them because they look or say or do a certain thing, right? And God's like, no, Deandra, stop that, right? So me acknowledging who he is in my life and trusting that whatever I am asking for from him, he will deliver on, and having faith that he will deliver on it is where he is making sure I understand that in ways that I've never understood it before. Because like I said, I didn't expect the Lord to do half the stuff he's done in my life. You know what I mean? But he's constantly letting me know that you are not asking for things that are outside of my realm, right? I control, and I am in charge of all of this. So whatever you want, if it's in my will, ask for it. And I used to think too, like certain things that I want, I was like, maybe I'm not asking for the right things, because I want, like I remember the Lord was like, I was saying, like, I wanted a bigger house and I wanted a different, you know what I mean? I'm thinking materialistic, and the Lord is like, ask that for that. What makes you think I won't deliver for the things that you want, right? The desires that you have, where do you think they come from? They come from me. I know what you want. I know what you desire. Ask for those things. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. But I did not think that way, right? So he is totally changing how I think, how I view him, trusting him more for stuff that I was not even like, that stuff that I didn't think that he would come through on. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, this is a tool, Lord. Why do you care about me wanting a tool? And he's like, for real? You think I don't care about the things you care about? Ask me. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I'm telling you, he's amazing. The stuff that he's doing in my life, I would not expect, because what I used to think about him, and he's totally changing that. So yeah.
Absolutely. The important thing that you said in that whole thing is that if you ask and you are within his will, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so often that we hear the prosperity gospel and this whole thing. The reality is that God's going to give us the things if we ask it in his will. Yes. And part of being in his will, are you reading his word? Are you communicating with him through prayer? Mm-hmm. Are you, because when you're in that mindset, you're not going to ask for a Lamborghini.
Exactly, right?
Just a SoftStop, nothing. I get you a SoftStop, right? And Lamborghini would be nothing either, but that's not edifying.
No.
Right?
Right.
And so I think, and I love cars. And so, but I think it's important that we realize that if we expect God to work and know that he's going to do those things through us, man, he's going to come through. And the funny thing is too, is that sometimes the answer that we ask isn't what we receive.
True.
And so we may think that, well, God didn't answer my prayer, but then you think back on it like a year later, and you're like, wait a second, he did, just not the way that I was wanting.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that, when you're asking, like you used the analogy there of the Lamborghini, it's not anything wrong with asking for a Lamborghini, but none of us are race car drivers that are glorifying God on the racetrack. So, but God is using you and your platform for you to tell others about him. So a SoftStop or table saw, any brand, he gave you a SoftStop, is a tool that within the will of what he's using it for. And but the other thing, favorite passage of mine is, it talks about pray, rejoice always.
Yes.
Pray without the Thessalonians.
Yes.
Pray without ceasing.
Yeah.
And then give thanks in all
Yep.
situations.
Yep.
And so giving thanks, whether he gives you the salsa or whether he doesn't, to be
Exactly.
content in whatever it is. And so, yeah, I think when God gives us a skill set or a desire that's in our heart, you know, then he wants to fulfill that. And part of that might be a tool. Part of it might be a class or a connection or whatever,
Exactly.
something
Totally.
to help us
Totally.
grow in that will that he has for us. So that's
Absolutely. It's something kind of cool, DeAndre. I don't know if you knew this, but so SawStop is owned by Festool. The CEO of Festool USA is a believer.
Well, amen.
So little things like that that you learn along the way, and we learned that from somebody on the podcast that
Really?
had met the CEO of Festool, and
I had
so
no idea. See,
Right.
and I have a Festool too. So, all right.
there you go. See, God works in mysterious ways
Yeah,
sometimes.
he does. Yeah, he does. But they're always amazing. You know what I mean? Always amazing. Yeah.
So you got this big shop, and you're like, wow, this is a lot more than I need.
Yeah.
But if you're making these big tables, now you have the room
Yes.
to make the tables and lay them out and do the things you need to there.
That's what I was also being able to start on. Like, I didn't just have to do one project at a time, wait for that to leave, and then come back. So I could kind of work on a couple of things, you know what I mean? And have the space to do it also. So yeah, that was, when you look at the scheme of things and how it worked out, it was like, yeah, I did need this. You know what I mean? I just didn't realize that I did need this.
That's awesome.
So I have seen you build tables. I've seen you build cabinets and all kind of stuff in between. So you basically just build whatever somebody asks you for, or is there? That's kind of how I am. But what do you like building the most? What is, like, if you could choose?
Tables.
Tables.
Yeah, tables are fun. Cabinets, I feel like I need to perfect that more. So I'm a little like, I'll make it, and I'll spend like, I gotta redo this. I gotta, you know what I mean? So it makes me take longer on it to make it look nice. But if I could just concentrate, you know what I mean, on one specific thing without feeling like, you know, like that stress on it, I probably would tackle more cabinetry more in a way where I felt comfortable doing it, because I'm recognizing people are like, I feel like cabinetry is almost like your base of a lot of things besides tables, of course, you know what I mean? To be able to do other things.
Everybody has a kitchen, everybody has a bathroom. So
You
there's
know what I'm saying? Yeah.
larger demand. And I think most people, like if you're buying or selling a home, they always tell you, put your money in the kitchen first, the bathroom second. They don't tell you have a nice kitchen table. And so I think nice furniture is, you know, it's kind of like, well, let me get me a nice house with some nice cabinets, and then I'll go get some IKEA.
See?
And,
That's what I did.
that's what we all did.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right. So DeAndre, let me ask you, what finish you're using for tables?
Oh, it really depends. Rubio
Tom knows where I'm
Monaco
going
was
with
like
this.
my first,
Tom knows where I'm going with this.
Go. Rubio Monaco was like when I first learned about them, I did that. And then for like the people who have the budget for it, and then polyurethane for people who are just like, I just want like a matte or a satin finish, or, you know, whatever it is that they're getting. But
Okay.
yeah.
So I own a finish company. I make Willie's Wood Honey. And so it's
Did you reach out to me?
I don't know if I did or not. Probably not.
Maybe not. Somebody else just told me that they're doing a finish. Maybe it's not.
Anyways, it is like a Rubio, or like Odie's oil, if you've heard of Odie's oil.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll shoot you a DM after the podcast, and you can shoot me your address. I'll ship you out a jar of it. You can test it out and see how you like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, I've been making it for several years. In January of this year, I made it official as a business and started selling it. And, yeah. it's one of those things. People have heard it on the podcast on why I make it, but I was using Odie's oil and loved it. It was great. And then the owner came out and did what he did. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I couldn't support it.
Yeah.
And so, I'm a pretty resourceful guy. I've always been somebody that can figure anything out. I'm not afraid to tackle anything. I'm like, I bet you I could figure out how to make this. And that's what I did. And so I started making it, and then I shipped it out. A couple of my buddies in the woodworking world use it, and they're like, dude, you've got to sell this. And so,
it's nice.
yeah,
That's fantastic. I love
it. Okay.
So, anyways, that's the story behind that. But, and that's the thing people don't realize in woodworking. So it's a hard wax oil, and so is Rubio or any of that.
Yeah.
The issue is the scratches, all that. It's going to happen. It really depends on the type of wood you're using. If you're using a softer wood, you're going to get scratches on it no matter what hard wax oil you use.
Right.
Now, if you use a poly, that's a film finish, and that's going to actually be more durable. But yeah, so it's done well. When I went to Workbench Con, I was pushing it, and people were like, "Yeah, I don't want to buy Odie's because it's all content creators."
Did you put them in for the sample bags or no?
No, that was another company. Yeah, that was another company.
Okay.
So I'd like to get in with them on that, but I don't think I'll be going back to Workbench Con just because it was, yeah. Tom and I, okay, I'll tell you the story. Everybody listening to the podcast has heard this. Tom and I won tickets. We won a maker challenge to go to Workbench Con. And, so everything but the hotel and the travel, was covered. So the ticket, which is really expensive, was covered. Yeah. And, I'm not a partier. I don't drink alcohol as it is, but, that scene, and then the classes were really shallow. I went to class every time, and I never really felt like I received anything, and, and I don't know. It was just, it's not, unless like something happened and like I sold 10,000 jars of my finish because of people from Workbench Con, it's just not my
cup of tea. No, I get it.
Yeah, it is expensive. I mean, even without it, Tom had a more expensive plane ticket than me, but it was still expensive. So,
it was expensive. It was expensive.
Yeah. For me, it's just the money. Like because my mom lives 3 hours from there, I would buy a plane ticket, go to my mom's, and then drive up to Workbench Con just for a day and hang out in the lobby of the hotel so I could see you and Dunk and a few other people. But I just, the classes that, and I've said this before, I think that if they were to do it differently, and rather than, how you have all these hour and a half long classes and you're trying to fit 4 into a day, or 3 or 4, it was 3 or 4. I think if they made it where you did 2 classes a day that were 4 hours long, or maybe 1 class that, but in an hour and a half, every one of them, the first 30 minutes was the speaker talking about themselves, how Workbench Con got them to be able to be there and be a speaker. Then they told about whatever, and I'll just use an example like the surf prep class that I went to. I signed up for that class for one specific reason. I wanted to get my hands on a surf prep sander.
Yeah.
Well, I got to touch it for like 2 minutes. And, because the class was hour and a half, Southern Pine.
And everybody in there.
Yeah, she, had to introduce herself, tell her about herself, then tell about the product. So it was very informative about the product.
Yeah.
But if the class had been 3 hours long versus an hour and a half, then after they got through telling you about the speaker, telling you about the company, now, guys, here are the stations. Everybody get on a surf prep sander, and you get, you know what I mean? I would enjoy that more. Same thing with epoxy class that I did with Jess Crow. It was same thing. Talked about her, talked about Total Boat, and then I wouldn't even call it an epoxy class. It was a CA glue class is what it was. But I mean, we poured that little Petri dish. I felt like I was in chemistry class, and then we were done. It was like, really? I did not learn a single thing about epoxy that day.
I see what you mean.
And so for me, I could drive to Denver, which is 4 hours from here. Jess Crow is teaching an epoxy class that's all day long.
Is that
and spend less money?
Woodcraft.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Woodcraft or Rockler that she was doing.
I think it's Woodcraft. Yeah.
But she's doing them, I think, in June or sometime. I can't remember.
I saw that.
And for the price the class is expensive now. It's like, I want to say $500-600. So about the same as,
okay.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. But you're going to get 8 hours with Jess, and you're going to learn.
Do it. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's definitely different.
Yeah. I think all the instructors were fantastic. I think the idea of the classes was fantastic. It's just, the
execution.
I hate to say it.
It
was a Cliff Notes version.
Definitely.
Of the class. And that was the problem. It's like, and so I didn't feel like I walked away. The only thing I walked away with from Workbench Con, from the classes, was the one where the lady was talking about social media and we were talking about getting sponsors and everything. The one thing I learned in that, she said, quit advertising for free. And so I have, before I'll be open. I want to one day get sponsored by Harvey. I love my Harvey table saw and bandsaw. I ain't gonna make no more content for them until they sponsor me. You know what I mean? Same thing with Festool, all of them. From now on, all my stuff's gonna be about builds. But that was the only thing I got out of all the classes. The only thing that I loved about it was like hanging out with Chris, hanging out with other people that I didn't get to hang out with you, but I got to meet you. And now here you're on the podcast. Hang out with
everybody was like, man.
Yeah. So
that was great.
And so that would be the only thing. But
and I mean, and I the other thing too, all the big guys, we all watch YouTube and like Bourbon Moth and all those guys. You got to see the true colors of some of them.
Yes.
Like Bourbon Moth laid back, down to earth. He stood there and talked with me and some other no-name people for like an hour and a half.
Nice.
And and I talked to Cam from Blacktail. He's exactly like he is in the video. But there was a few of them that like there was a click, and like I would love to just get to know and just talk to a couple guys, and they were in their own thing. And Tom, I think, kind of brought this up to me. We have to realize that these guys started going to Workbench Con before Workbench Con was big, and they've made friendships
with each other.
And they've grown together. And so I get that, but
it's the same with you, Deandra. You hung out with a group of ladies. I saw y'all together everywhere you were at. You had your friends.
I did an interview. Yeah, I did an interview with them, and they talked me into going because they were both going. One of the girls was like, I wasn't going to go, but she told me that she was going to get a ticket and needed a roommate. And I was like, I'm not going to spend the full amount for the ticket. I'm not going to spend for a hotel by myself. You know what I mean? Like you said, it was expensive. And when they told me that somebody was selling a ticket and I was going to split the hotel, I was like, Lord, if you make this possible for me to go, I'll go. And that's kind of what happened, So we did a, not a podcast, but like a live like this. And we talked about it at the end, and that's how we were able to like know each other was because of that. Yeah.
But that was cool. The coolest part. That was the relationships, hanging out with the handful of people that we got. But the other thing is like in 3 days, you can't get to know 600 people. It's impossible. You can't even say hello to 600 people in that short of town. So you kind of got to.
Yeah, exactly. I totally feel you on that.
And we ended up, we went to dinner the last night with some really awesome guys that we had met and, brothers in Christ. And, And so you do get that part of it that I appreciated. And
Yeah.
I would go back just for I wouldn't go to any class. I'd go just for the relationship.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you on that.
Right.
So
But I don't know. I could pay, $600 and then another,
right.
what would be $600 for,
But
right.
my thought process is like you buy a plane ticket and we all meet at a different hotel that's cheaper, like a Holiday Inn or something that we can all afford. And then we could just drive over there and hang out in the lobby. And,
I like that idea.
You know what I mean? So it's just, I thought that hotel was way overpriced. I was not impressed. I was like,
Yeah, it was.
When me and my wife and daughter travel, I'm gonna be honest with you. We stay at a hotel that's clean.
Yeah, and has breakfast.
And has breakfast included.
Included, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yes. Yes. I was like, we do the Hyatt because we have points and there's a Hyatt wherever we go. And that has been one of our things that we do is like breakfast is included and we have Hyatt points. So anytime we go anywhere.
And that was the worst part of Workbench Con was the breakfast.
There was no bacon.
Man, your boy wants some eggs and bacon.
Some eggs and some bacon, not fruit and whatever.
It's like, man.
I think everybody complained about that.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Everybody complained about that.
And I expect the amount of money you pay to go there. Like
you would think that
give us some
sustenance for the morning.
Yeah.
But good news for you. So we had, I forget who it was on the podcast that spilled the beans, but Katz Moses is going, and he's in California. He is putting together something different. Well, it's going to be kind of like Workbench Con, but more hands-on. Like we go there and get our hands dirty, type thing. We don't know when it's going to be, but who was it that told us that he's working on something but I think it's going to kind of be similar to that. Like they have an event down in Texas, at the Austin School of Woodworking.
Texas Woodworking Festival.
Yeah, festival. But he's going to do something where it's more where you get to go there and really get your hands dirty.
Well,
there's an event that's happening in October.
Oh, it is?
A maker's camp.
Oh, that's in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you familiar with that?
Yeah,
Haven't been to that?
I am. Yeah.
If I lived in Pennsylvania where he lives, I'd be going because he could drive there. I want to go, but I can't afford this year. I've got to also have a daughter in college, and so my daughter's 20, and so she'll graduate in December, but then she wants to go to PT school, and so I realistically will get to go to Maker Camp in about 4 years. I mean, that's just
I'm gonna put up some money each month.
Man, I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna have to start a GoFundMe page for Tom because, man, college is just. Yeah. But my daughter she has worked her butt off, and and so she deserves it. And I told her, you keep the GPA up and you do your part.
I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it.
So
yeah, when the kids are doing right, you know what I mean? Same way the Lord is with us. We we do with our kids. Yep. So yeah.
And we did the same thing. We paid for soccer because I was like, keep them out of trouble, keep them busy. And but yeah.
Yeah. And you had mentioned, DeAndre, about your husband was like, no, I want you to stay home with the kids.
Yeah.
This year, my wife and I made that decision that she stays home now. Yeah. And it's been a financial, I mean, it's
different.
well, and I'll say this, and here's my little plug for anybody listening. Don't get yourself in a bunch of debt, and don't make dumb financial decisions, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to, right? Yeah. If we'd have brand new cars and all this and that, right. And so we've had to scale back. I mean, when you have two good incomes, and my wife was in radiology, and so
I was pharmacy technician.
Yeah. So
I get it.
Take that step back, but it was by far the best decision we've ever made. Now we're not doing homeschool, but our son, he turns 4 tomorrow. Is his birthday, and he'll be going to preschool to private Christian school this fall, and then we plan to send him there through high school.
Yeah.
That's where my wife went to high school, and so
Oh wow! Okay.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes. The ours. I feel you on that though. That's being in your kid's life. Like my oldest daughter in high school, like our house was the hangout spot, and I would have rather, you know what I mean. I get to know who she's with and who's trying to influence her, and then it was like, if this, hey, mom's here, you know what I mean? And of course, because of who she was, like my daughter was a social butterfly. She had a lot of friends that anytime friends needed to ride home, I could take them. You know what I mean? I could drop them off. They would get in the car. We'd be all going to wherever we needed to go. But I feel like they appreciated that. Even when they see me now, they say, hi, mom, come give me a hug, show me some love. You know what I mean? And they're all graduated from high school. So yeah, being in their lives was like detrimental for parents to see that our kids are okay, you know?
Yep. And the other thing about it is Satan has tried to divide the human, the family structure, and everything he does is about not depending on God, separating us from God. And, our society has made it to where the value of a woman is better as the CEO of a company versus being a mom. And nothing wrong with ladies being in the workforce.
Not at all.
But there is no greater job, no more honorable job than a mom. Man, and I'm telling you, when you have a mom that's involved and a dad involved in the kids' lives, you can see it in the children. But the other thing is, like you talked about getting off that, you called it cash. We call it food stamps earlier.
That's what it is. Well, we had both the cash aid and the food stamps.
Our government wants to replace God. And
you see what I'm saying?
I'm telling you, it's when you get out of all that and you put all of your faith in, you're like, all right, you're my provider, God. Yes. You find out he provides.
Definitely.
And he provides better than the government.
Oh my gosh, way
better.
So,
but
right?
Yeah, man, that is so
totally
awesome.
Agree. Yeah, totally agree with that.
Tell us what you got going on in your shop in 3,600 square foot.
I know, right?
I can only imagine like 10, 12 projects or something.
Now I feel like I am being we'd be doing a little pivot right now. I feel like the Lord is leading me to teach classes now. So I have, I was like, I have that option to where it'll be more hands-on. It's crazy how people ask you to do things and you don't see that for yourself. And then later on, God's like, ma'am, I'm in control here. You just do what I say. That kind of is like where I feel like he is leading me to do more. So I was on Good Day Sacramento and I shared that. And the news in my city, and the people who saw it when I shared I wanted to do classes, I got some DMs asking about signing up. And there's a group of Girl Scouts who are coming to get their woodworking badge that I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. So that's happening this Saturday. And I have a little project for them to do, to come in and have a little class. I'm going to let them make something fun and have a little personalized stuff for them so that they can go home and, with some little fun things for getting their woodworking badge. So yeah, I can see that he's moving me towards doing more of teaching now. So I am still finishing up a few projects that I have, getting ready to start the van build. Hopefully this comes in the next few weeks. And then we're going to go into teaching. So yeah, this is a fun ride. Exhausting, but fun ride.
That's awesome.
That could really turn into an amazing ministry. Like, you can have, because I see your post all the time. You be posting the scriptures. I love it. But I could see that stuff hanging all around your shop. And
you understand, right?
It just opening up conversations.
Exactly. You get it. See? And I didn't say that.
There you go.
Awesome. What about you? What do you got? Any woodworking?
Well, so next week I will be able to tell you I'm doing woodworking. So we have a farm that we're building, and so I have
Ooh.
been doing nothing but building beds. And so I will be done, praise God, hopefully by the end of this week. Because that's
Cool.
my wife's the gardener. And so
Okay.
I'm doing this to help her. And we're turning part of our farm into a lavender farm. And so it's just a lot of work for these first few years. And then
Yeah.
eventually, hopefully it'll be manageable. But my stuff gets put on the back burner. So
That's how it
I
is, right?
have some stuff I need to work on, but the likelihood that I do anything other than walk past my tools and dream about using them this week probably won't happen. So
What's a lavender farm? Is she going to do something with lavender?
yeah, make soaps and lotions and
Okay.
oils and things of that
Nice.
nature.
Okay.
We're also going to grow culinary lavender that you can cook with. And
Nice.
so
Okay.
yeah. And so, just she stays at home now. Our daughter's 20, but we are, that's her dream is to she's my wife is an amazing cook, but she is her happiest. She's herself when she's out with her fingers in the dirt. Like she just loves, and if she touches a plant, it grows.
Yeah.
Like so. But, yeah.
What's funny is I told my wife, I said, man, Tom's starting a lilac farm. And she's like, why is he starting a lilac farm? I said, I don't know. I guess you can cook with it. And she's like, you mean lavender? I said, I can't. So anyways, that's kind of a funny
You were
little.
so close. You got the L part right.
I was so close. Well, because I'm the guy that cut down the lilac bush because I kept hitting it when I was mowing, and my wife about killed me. So I didn't cut it down. I just basically destroyed 3/4 of it.
He just didn't prune it properly.
No. Hey, to my defense, it did sprout this year, and there's a.
He's like, I did do some good to it.
Yeah, I did do some good. You know what's funny about pruning, and Tom did a story about this before you took your fast about pruning a tree and what that does. When we bought this property, actually today marks a year that we've been back in Pennsylvania, that we moved from Nashville back to here, and we've got 2 azalea bushes in front of the porch, and they were kind of strangly looking, and my wife went and pruned them last year. And let me tell you what, there are more flowers on that thing now than I bet you it's ever seen, and just gorgeous pink, full bush flowers. And pruning does make a difference. I'm excited to see the apple tree that we pruned really good and see how it buds out. But I'm happy to announce that I actually did some woodworking this weekend, and I sent Tom a picture. So, long story short, I got some time to go out into the shop. It was raining out, and so I couldn't go outside and do anything. And my wife is in a craft show in 2 weeks. Deandra, my wife, is a stained glass artist, so she makes like stained glass stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. Look her up on Instagram, Grace's Glass Works. But
okay, nice.
And so when she does craft shows, I'll usually put some like cutting boards and stuff in there just to, give it a little different flair outside of the glass. And it usually does well. And I sell everything I put out. And so she's like, hey, I'm actually going to be in this craft show with her, helping her, because my in-laws are going to take the kids. And she's like, hey, can you make a couple cutting boards? I was like, oh yeah, I can, easy. So I get out to the shop with full intention to make a couple cutting boards. And I look, and Tom knows this feeling. I'm like, I don't want to make a cutting board. I've made so many cutting boards over my life. I'm just like, I don't want to make a cutting board right now. And so I look, and I'd started a couple weeks ago making a turkey call. So a wooden box call for turkey. If you're a turkey hunter, you can, use wood and manipulate it to sound like a turkey. And so you have to look at my Instagram. I posted a picture of it, but, and so I saw it sitting there, and I just had kind of milled out the box part of it, and that's about all I did with it. I looked at it and I said, you look more intriguing than a cutting board right now. And so I finished the turkey call. Yeah. Now it sounds like a turkey with laryngitis, but it's my first ever turkey call. So I'm,
I need to hear it. Are you going to record this out?
Yeah, I have a recording of it. It sounds okay. I mean, if you don't know turkeys and what turkey calls should sound like, you probably won't know the difference. But it doesn't sound quite right. And that's because you're supposed to use a softwood box with a hardwood lid. So what it is, it's a box and then a lid that pivots, and you scratch the edge of the wood with the lid, and it makes the turkey sound.
Okay.
And so, well, I used walnut and cherry because I'm a woodworker. And you're supposed to use, you're supposed to use like a poplar or a sassafras, something softer as the base, and the tone will sound better with, and then the hardwood on top. And so I'm probably gonna make another one. Actually, I have somebody that wants to buy one from me. They're like, if you make another one, or do you want to sell that one? I said, well, this one doesn't sound good, but I wouldn't mind making another one because it's different, right? It's doing something different than just cutting boards and stuff.
I feel you. That's why I started playing around with epoxy. I was like, I need to do something different.
Yeah.
I want to make something fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What you're telling me to make.
so yeah, I made that, and I got some more of those to make. I want to make another one or two of them, and then I've got some cutting boards to do. And so when we bought this house, it hadn't been lived in like a year and a half. It had been kept up sort of, but the property was, we've done a lot of work. Well, now the next thing is we have this nice size front porch, but there's no railings on it, and there's no stairs off the front porch. There's just like 2 cinder blocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's janky. And so right. And so I want to build stairs, and then we're going to put railing around the front porch and just spruce up the front of the house and just make it look nice. And so that's on the list of things to do. And pour a pad for the stairs to come down onto, and then there's no sidewalk because we live out in the country. So we have a horseshoe driveway. The house sits off to here, and there's no sidewalk from the driveway to the house. I mean, you can go to the garage, but to like the front door. And so I'm been watching videos on concrete work. And so Tom, I know you've done some concrete stuff, so I may have to ping you a little bit on that. But yeah, so
you got some projects.
Yeah. So before we end the podcast, I have one question for you.
Okay.
Deandra. How did you come up with the name Work Boots and Glass? Like how did that? I love it. It's fantastic.
It's pretty obvious, man.
I know it's obvious, but like, was it like an aha moment? Was it just like
it was I had to think through something that spoke to me. I am a quirky, funny, goofy, silly girl, if you can't tell. And I wanted something that was going to be me. And I was recognizing that my very first brand partnership was for some work boots. I bought a pair of my own and started tagging them, did the free advertising for them, started tagging them in all of my posts. And they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted a pair. And I did that with a couple of companies who sold shoes. And because I was getting more, I guess, followers, or maybe it wasn't even followers. I just started tagging them in all of my stuff. And they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted a pair of shoes. And I was like, yes. And that kind of like every time they got a new line out for women, I got a pair. And glasses have always been my thing. And I would find cute glasses to be able to put, but this is my accessory. I don't wear jewelry. I don't have a ton of like things that I do to dress up, but glasses have been my fun, quirky thing. And I was recognizing the amount of times that I would buy glasses, I started to get, a few pair that I was noticing that people would comment on them, and that I didn't wear the same pair every day. And people would tell me they liked my glasses. And of course I had a ton of work boots that I started tagging them in that I was just like, these are the 2 things that I put on before I go to my shop. Let's do work boots and glasses.
Yeah, I love it.
So
awesome story. Funny enough, when we met you at Workbench Con, the first thing I thought of is, those are some cool glasses. Honestly, I remember that. Like, I don't know what you were wearing. I think they were thicker framed maybe or something. I was like, oh, she's got some nice, you know. And so,
Yeah, and I make sure. Well, now it's a thing. It's funny. I have people who are like, I have not seen you wear the same pair of glasses in a row, and I was like, and you won't, because I make sure I do that. So yeah, I have all my glasses laid out in a way where I know if I've worn them, because I'll put what I've worn at the end. So I grab the front.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, so with that being said, so tell everybody where they can find you at: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. What's your
All of that, right? So yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, Work Boots and Glasses, and my website, workbootsandglasses.com. And you can see all the stuff that I've made in the past and some of the stuff that I'm working on.
awesome?
Yeah.
Well, Deandra, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming to the
You guys are
podcast.
so welcome. You guys are awesome as well.
You know, it's we always tell people, like, we have people on and they always say, or we'll message them or talk to them like, I don't really have that strong of a testimony. I just grew up in the church and this and that. Like, your testimony will speak to somebody, whether you think it's powerful or not, because God will
Ain't
use
that
it.
the truth, right?
Right.
Ain't that the truth? And that's the other thing that I've been learning too, is not to downplay our own role in this, because we never know what we share that will help encourage or strengthen somebody else. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
I mean, we've had recent drug addicts come to the Lord, and we've had people that are like, yeah, I grew up in the church. I've always been in the church. I've always been part of the church. Church is just who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And we've had both ends of the spectrum, and it's both stories are important. And so we appreciate you coming on and you being faithful to hearing God and listening when he says, Deandra, I want you to do this,
Right.
is a testament to your discernment for the Spirit and who he is through you. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And
Of course, this was awesome. I'm so glad you guys reached out. I had a good time.
yeah, absolutely. Well, until next week, I'm Will from Slat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.